Sure, this is the place.
One of the things that I love is that two films idea of your life. And there's two stories you can tell. One that is safe and full of regret, and one that is risky and full of pride and joy. This place seems to be a stepping stone across that bridge that is so scary to walk across.
Another partner switch around for the intro. It's really a good way to start things off. But thank you so much, Justin, for introducing me, and to Duke and Anne and Libby and everyone who's here, who's been creating this amazing space for all of us to connect in this genuine way. I'd actually love to start my talk with a quick experience instead of just diving straight into it. Speaking of doing, just to give you a perspective on doing, what did we all do this morning? What did you do this morning? I had some oatmeal. Anybody want to share? Went for a walk. Ate yoga. Did yoga. Walk, yoga, breakfast. Talking over breakfast. Great. Now I want to take you into this heart space that Justin mentioned and give a different perspective on this doing. So if you all would just put a hand on your heart and close your eyes. And actually imagine like a small infant, holding a small infant right at your hand, at your chest, and create an all-loving, all-nurturing space for that young child. And breathe in through your nose and down your throat and see that breath entering this heart space. And as you breathe, let your heart beat. And let your heartbeat get closer and closer to your chest and to the palm of your hand. And when you can feel your heartbeat against the palm of your hand, ask your heart, what did I do today? And as your heart answers, you can ask, is there anything else that I did today? Anything else? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Did anybody's answers change? Yeah. Does anybody want to share what the new answers were? You took care of yourself. Anyone else? She connected with that awesome woman. Yeah. 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 You took your breath away. Amazing. Yeah. I know my answer changed from eating breakfast and chatting with lovely people to really connecting and hearing someone's story, loving this amazing human, and preparing to try to share my story in a way that might touch the people in this room. So my last few years of life have been about exploring a process of realignment, from just thinking about doing from my head to doing from my heart, and to doing from a place of what's most important in life. I thought I was doing this. I was living a life that was kind of the poster child of doing what you love and changing the world. I was a social entrepreneur who started a big thing called The Feast about 2006, 2008. It started even way before that. Even when I was a little kid, I was like, I want to change the world. I was really passionate about animals. I collected all of those fact books and wanted to save the planet and recycle. And that just kind of kept, developing as I got older and older. Went into communications and wanted to use this skill for social good. And that was the point at which I started this event series where I was bringing together other people from other disciplines, architecture, design, business, who wanted to use their skills for good. And it was just the most amazing experience. We created so many things together. We started a conference that was, 400 people. Eventually, people started connecting with us from around the world to get involved. And so we started a dinner series where anyone could tackle an issue that they cared about locally, bring people together and try to figure out something to do about it. Really incredible, had everyone from CEOs to musicians coming together. We partnered with the White House and went out into neighborhoods like Red Hook to talk about resilience and actually create technology that would address that. We tackled, sustainability, the future of education and healthcare. Startups came out of this. Relationships were made. It was really a beautiful, beautiful thing. We did over 600 dinners all around the world, and people would get together at 7 p.m. local time on the same day to tackle these issues. Sri Lanka, Singapore, Nairobi, just really incredible stuff. And so here I am, Entrepreneur Magazine is talking about it, and it's really great. It's 2013, and it's like the best year yet, right? Like we actually have the sponsorship down, and I have an amazing team, and things are going well. And it's getting up to sort of event time, and so things are really busy, as everyone at the Do will recognize. And I get a call from my dad. And so he's like, I know you're really busy. How's everything going? Really good. And he's like, okay, just want to let you know, I'm coming into town, and I'm having a super small procedure, not even anything to worry about. I just want to let you know. I'm like, okay, is everything okay? He's like, totally fine. It's no big deal. I was like, okay, well, I'd love to come up and see you while you're in town. He's like, you really don't have to, but if you I was like, no, I'd really like to come see you. And so, day comes and goes, and somehow my calendar invite didn't pop up, or it popped up in the midst of a million other calendar invites. And I missed the appointment, and he never called me to tell me that he was even there. And so by the time I realized they're sort of on their way out, and I was like, are you sure I can't come see you? I'm really sorry I missed the appointment. I'd really love to come see you and just make sure everything's okay. It's like, no, really, it's totally fine. It's really small. I was like, okay, as long as you're absolutely sure, I want to respect that. And so his surgery was around the same time as the feast, and so I was planning to go see him. Did this really big conference. Everything went great. It was very stressful, but everything was really beautiful. And at the end of it, I call him to see how he's doing and figure out when I'm coming home to see him. And it turns out he's still in the hospital. He never really told me that he was still there, and so I started to get concerned. I start preparing all of my things to leave in the next day, and as I'm preparing to leave, I see a Reiki 101 class at the yoga studio that I go to, and I decide to go because I've had some profound experiences with energy work, because I'm going to go see my father, and he's not feeling well, so that would be good to know. And then within the next day, I get a phone call from my aunt, who is pretty much hysterical, a very shaky voice, trying to explain a complication that's happened. Needless to say, it's very bad. And I become hysterical. And a dear friend of mine, luckily, was kind enough to drive me straight to the hospital where he was, instead of taking the train as I was planning. And while I'm in the car, I get the phone call that no one wants to hear, which is that the doctor says, get the family here as soon as possible. We don't know what's going to happen. I arrive at the hospital to see my aunt and my mother crying and shaking, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened from what was supposed to be a very small procedure. And what happened was a very, very rare complication that should have cost him his life that night. That night, by some miracle, whether it was prayer or otherwise, he survived. He then survived the next night, the next surgery. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, and again, by some miracle, he survived and is doing well now. But what was amazing about that experience was just the most important part of life that I was shown then. The part where the friend who is really your friend comes to your rescue and holds you through all of the difficult situations and all of the challenging news. The family who comes and brings meals and hangs out by the bedside, keeping people cheerful. And I saw the hardest part for me being all of the other people there who didn't have that, who were going through these challenges alone. And so as these situations do, they make you face your mortality and see, oh, family, oh, love, oh, relationship. These are the most important parts of my life that I had kind of, not been looking at in my pursuit of changing the world. The other amazing thing that happened in that hospital was that there was a Reiki practitioner. So he would give Reiki to the patients. He taught the nurses. Really random that a Reiki practitioner happens to be in a hospital. So I ended up getting energy healing while I was there, and given the 101 class, in seeing all of the need for this healing, I asked him, would you teach me? And he said, I was actually going to ask you if you wanted to learn. And it was in that time that I started my journey as a healer. He trained me relatively quickly, and whether it was the Reiki or the challenging situation, I believe it was both, my world got turned inside out. All of a sudden, when I started to go back to work, started to go back to this amazing world-changing thing that I was doing, there were all of these things that I realized were inconsistent with this new perspective on the world, which is where the heart and the most important things lead. And so all of a sudden, and I think it was because of the Reiki, I physically could not do the things that were in alignment. All of these things that were justifications. I think, we make a lot of those. Oh, it's okay to do this because blah. They were physically impossible. I was on plane rides to go have meetings with people that I just could not do anymore. And so this was put me in a kind of amazing but awkward situation where it was like, okay, I literally have to figure out what it is to be in alignment, what it is to follow my truth. What it is I should be doing in the world, and actually kind of who I am. So like any good self-searching closet hippie from New York, I moved to California. And you guys have it, you guys are like way far ahead over here. But it's been really amazing to move out here and to find, communities of people who are exploring personal development and healing work. And when I first got out here, I started really surface level. I didn't, dive into all of the retreats and stuff. I really just started by meditating and sitting with these questions. Who am I? What am I good at? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And I would just sit in silence in meditation and kind of drop these questions like pebbles into this silent pond and kind of see what emerged. Now at this point, this exploration was still relatively high level. It was still mostly about what do I do in the world, right? Like what do I do about my work? Because I really got to get back to my work and figure out what it is. And so, the things that were emerging for me, the things I was kind of like really thinking about were, what do I do for work? And so some really interesting stuff came up, and I came up with some new ideas and new directions for things, and one that I got particularly excited about that was like, oh my gosh, I could totally take this in a new direction, change everything. Maybe I could even fundraise for this thing and really grow and scale, and this is how I build my team and blah, blah, blah. And I had a lot of positive reinforcement from it. I ran it by a friend who's a coach, and she was like, it sounds amazing. I actually really love it. I think it's a perfect time for this. And given the meditation, I want you to sit with it for a week and just kind of see what comes up. So I was like, okay, that's fair enough. I really like to get going on it, but I'll take the week. So I sat with it again for a week, and what came up for me was this really interesting, nugget, which was, why do you want to make something big? And when I dug down deeper into that, this was sitting for a while, the insight came to me, if you make big things, people will appreciate you. I sat with that longer to try to understand, where is that coming from? And I started realizing that the experience of my father's death near death in that hospital was not the first time that I had gone through that experience. That was my stepfather. My father died when I was 5. And I, at a young age, had started to see my mother and all of my actions in the world wanting to help, wanting to make things better for my mother, who was sad about my father's death, for the people who were challenged and grieving. And as a young human, I developed this understanding of the world and how to gain love as being, if I do things to help, people will love me. That was the big, first profound insight in this exploration. And I was like, whoa, wait, what is going on? This was the first time I had ever explored this part of myself, all of these years of my life. And I was confused. I was fascinated. I was like, what is going on? And so, again, started diving in deeper, understanding that if I'm going to figure out what I do in the world, I need to figure this out. And so what better mirror for looking at yourself when you're trying to understand yourself? Sometimes it can be hard to see, because you're in it. What better mirror than relationship? So I met this one and started a relationship. It's been one of the best and most challenging relationships in my life. And in that way, a great mirror, because, kind of like the best mirrors for you, and especially in like a romantic relationship, are not like those skinny mirrors that just make you look good. They're like those like facial mirrors that like get really into your pores and you can see like everything. You're like, oh my God, that's there. So this is one of those kinds of relationships. We started looking at everything. I also lucked out because he's a somatic psychotherapist who happens to work in marriage and family counseling on relationships, so very unique perspective there. And particularly, why it was such a good mirror was because we were just pushing each other's buttons like crazy. Like, I was just pushing him in all of his right ways, and he was just pushing me in all my right ways, and it was really, really tough, but the best part about that was that I realized I had buttons. I had all these buttons that I never knew existed because I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person generally, so this whole exploration has been really fascinating. I didn't know that I had this issue. I didn't know I had these beliefs. I certainly didn't know I had all of these buttons that guy was pushing. And so in this exploration, thanks to him and thanks to a bunch of other mirrors, I started realizing that I had all of these buttons, and that all of these buttons were reflections telling me about myself, showing me what fears and assumptions that I had and what stories that I had. Again, it went back to the biggest one for us. We had a big blowout at one point, and so we actually went to see a therapist. It's like dentists, like, don't work on yourself, right? So we went to see a therapist, and we're, we have this like very emotional, conversation, and the therapist, asks us to stand face to face. And so we're looking each other in the eyes, and she tells us you make a commitment to the relationship. And so we do, and we say our commitments, and we're looking face to face. And she points at me and she says, are you doing this for you, or are you doing this for him? And it took everything I had to say that it was for me. And that was maybe the first time in my life, given everything, that I started to do things from a place of me, for me, from a place of exploring being full and whole. And so from that point, just started looking inside and looking at really accepting, what are all these buttons telling me? What are all of these places of discomfort showing me about myself? Where are the fears? Where are the concerns? Where are the desires? And where are those desires not being met? Why are they not being met? And what wants to be healed so they can? It's been an absolutely amazing exploration, and I feel like as I start to wonder why is there this pain there? Why is there that confusion? Or why is there that insecurity? It's been like rooting out little gems. It's been challenging, but every time I find one now, I'm like, ooh, like there's a thing, I can get rid of it now. So it's actually been a really wonderful exploration, and I feel like, what I never realized was all of these buttons were holes to my wholeness. And as I've been healing them, as I've been discovering them and uncovering them, I've been becoming more whole. Lately, I've been doing a little more healing work, and it's been incredible to realize the holiness of everyone, really, in working with individuals and working with groups. I say holiness in a way where, in working with each person, I get to see how incredible their light is, how powerful they are underneath all of these stories, and yet how many of us have these holes. We're like Swiss cheese. All of these, they might be big, they might be small. And the most amazing thing about it, too, is that whether we know it or not, so many of us, there's a part of us that may want to let go, and yet there's another part of us that kind of wants to hang on to these holes because, A, they're painful to look at, and we've been trained to look away from pain, right, or run away from it. And the second is because, if we are not these identities, if we are not these stories, who are we? If I am not the good daughter who stands up to help whenever help is needed, if I'm not the change maker who helps everyone else, if I'm not the successful entrepreneur, who am I? Would anybody care? Would I be standing on this stage talking to you? What I can say from my experience, I'm still a total novice at this with plenty more holes to plug or heal. It's that if you look at the pain, it eventually goes away for good. And that if you work from a place of wholeness, I feel more powerful, more capable, most importantly, held in love than I have ever before in my life, and certainly more than I could have been if I lived the life of my stories and wounds. So here I am. I'm still on this journey, and yet exploring what it means for what I do in the world, but coming at what I do from a place of more fullness, more of my own truth and understanding that. So, where I am with the feast is incorporating a lot of this learning into that. I had a big insight at one point in the energy work that was, we're never going to fix anything until we heal each other. And so I've gone from looking at systems and looking at the problems of the world as reflections of ourselves and helping people experience their wholeness, experience their own truth, experience their purpose and why they're here so that they can be actors in the world, working not from a place of martyrdom or should, but just what would you do if you didn't have to do anything at all? Who would you be? So it's been an incredible journey, and that's the attempt of how I am attempting to be in this world. and to do from that place of alignment of head in service of the heart. I'm definitely excited to learn from everything and everyone, both in what everyone has to teach me, as well as in what you reflect in me. And I know that while I'm still at the beginning, it has already been way more beautiful and way more vast than I could have ever imagined. So I hope that this has been some inspiration to you. The journey obviously never ends, but I'm definitely way more excited to be doing what I'm doing from this place. Thank you.